Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hoosier Garage. I'm Adam. I'm your host, and mainly the only guy you ever see on here. So a while back we did a little rehab on the old rear axle here. Nothing major, just some repaint, a chrome cover. We put some new seals on the ends, and in the pinion seal we added that, and that was pretty much it. And I had talked about possibly changing the gears at some point. We've got a set of 355s in here. It came with the van. For a highway, like a good cruiser vehicle that this van is really going to be, slated to be, I would like to have more of a highway gear. So I was thinking 271, 276, something like that. Well, our buddy Kyle at RT's Salvage hooked us up, and I have a 271 right here. We pulled it out yesterday. It came out of like a 73 or 74 B body. And so we got a pinion and then the ring, and it's an open unit, but we could probably have the gear put on the one we have already in the rear. Keep it a little simple that way. I'll put that back in there carefully. But also, Kyle at RT's is going to be sponsoring us for a while, and he's got a lot of cool stuff. He deals in 64 through 74 Chrysler, Mopar, anything like that. He has a lot of NOS stuff too, a lot of dealer type stuff, brochures, and just, he has a lot of parts cars that he's taken and gotten a lot of parts off of. He has, spindles, taillights, all this kind of stuff, and he's in the process of organizing a lot of it, and he still picks up new stuff all the time. So check out, we put a little thing here down below, and you can see it, and if you need to look for any parts, I didn't tell you anything specific, but he might have some stuff for you. So, send him a message there, and hopefully he can help you out. And we hope to even show him on one of our exposés here soon on the channel. So, watch for that. So, we're going to actually have to pull these wheels off, pull the cover back off. Fortunately, I never filled any gear oil in there because I had this feeling that something's going to happen, and sure enough it did. So that was a good call on my part. So we're going to pull the cover, pull the axles. We can do that, and then usually when you take a rear that's been here this long out, you might as well just go ahead and cut your U-bolts and order some brand new ones because they stretch and you don't want to re-stretch old ones. Better to just go to like Mancini's and get some original Chrysler U-bolts. They have the flat side on the end of them, I think, on these. I know on the cars they do, but we'll look, we'll see. And we'll get it out and get it ready. We'll strip some of it out, and I'll tell you what I like to do when I take a rear end like this in to get it set up with either a different gear or just get it set up in general. Save you a little bit of money, and hopefully get it back a little quicker than normal. And you kind of want to look at these caps right here like you would on an engine. The main caps. Just keep them on the side that they belong on the rear end that they came from. Save you some trouble in case anything's off. Okay, so we're gonna cut the bolts. If you have like really brand new bolts and you have to do this, go ahead and loosen them and all that business. But these have been on here for probably the whole time this van's been around, and so they're pretty stretched. The bolts are very snug and secure in there. There's a little bit of rust in there, so you might as well just cut them. You can't really use them again, or I wouldn't advise using them again. What I'm going to do is cut one on this side and then one on the other side. That way we'll have the one holding it. And these things have a lot of tension on them, so when you get through it, you'll think that you're almost there, then snap, it'll usually pop. So usually best to do around the arch. If you do it over here, then it's still going to have pressure hanging around this tube. So if you split it right here in the middle, they'll be able to turn away from the tube easily. So you've seen it and you heard it. And there's only just a little scratch for our blade hit it. But otherwise, you can turn these and then go out that way. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I've noticed that these are the same style they use on the car. See, there's this crosshatch pattern that actually gets wider. If you turn this around, see that? It's actually flat right here. That tells you it's an OEM Chrysler U-bolt. Now, when we get all this out of the way, and you'll have basically this plate, they'll be attached to it. You'll have to cut them again, but you'll be able to cut it, you know, on the workbench or anything like that, because you'll have the nut on the top, and this will be too wide to slip through the hole usually. So you'll either cut it, you know, up here where it's straight, or you can cut where the nut is, and then you'll be able to refurbish your plate if you need to. So I'm going to do this one on the other side, and then we're going to get down to where we can support this axle to where we can let it down easily, so we don't wreck anything, or if it happens to grab the brake line, and or grab these plates, which are just kind of hanging there, but they're hanging there delicately because of the line. So just try to keep everything in check and you should be fine, especially if you do it easily. Okay, so on this side I cut this strap, and one thing you want to do is make sure you turn them outward to where there's no obstruction if it drops straight down. Okay, next thing I did, I took this floor jack, and I only have it on one side. There's one strap holding it over here. Here's one strap here. And I have the jack under it just enough to hold where it is sitting by itself. So if I let this down, okay, you didn't see the axle drop, but I'm just gonna push it up here evenly, right to where it gets it, right there. It pushes up just a touch. That way, if you go to cut this, and if let's say you have it pushed way up, and you go to cut this, this spring's going to come down pretty violently, and that can be pretty dangerous. So you just want it to where it's just resting, and when you do snap this, it's just going to set right here. The spring's not going to go anywhere. So if anything, it's just going to go up a little bit, not a lot. It won't be going like 2 or 3 inches and bam, like that. So keep that in mind. And that's one of the good things about taking the axles out, taking the center section out, is you've taken a lot of the weight off of it. You really just have the weight of the housing, which usually one man can just pick it up, you know, and kind of bench press it. So no big deal there. Make sure you got your glasses on. Make sure you keep a good distance. Make sure your jack stands are very secure. Okay? So as far as distance, I don't want to be right up next to the spring, regardless of how far you think it's going to travel. Get right back here out of the way and just start cutting away at it. Again, best place is in the middle. I know your space might be tight because of the jack, but that's okay. Now this one wasn't that bad because I'd already taken the nut off of this one. But this side of the J-bolt, or the U-bolt, I'm sorry, the U-bolt was very stubborn, didn't want to come off, so I decided, well, let's go ahead and cut it. So this side of the axle is completely loose from the spring. It's just the jack is holding it. So what you can do is you can take another jack, you can take something to bottle jack or something just to hold it in place here securely. And then you can do the exact same thing on the opposite side. And then you should be able to just lower it down or have somebody help you or whatever your situation is. And in some cases you can even take a jack and drop it down easily and pull it out. So whatever's best for you, do what you are comfortable doing. Don't do anything that seems a little iffy. Okay, one thing we're going to do right now before we go any further is just put these back in where they came from. Just loosely. We can micromanage any cleaning or movement of these later. There we go. So we'll lay that with the other stuff. Some of those pop right out, some of them kind of shove out real slow. That one I used the dead blow on it. There's our 355 pinion. So set that aside. And now we will jump into all the other things we need. See, this one has like a spacer in it. That's maybe a different style of crush sleeve. Usually when you have that bump in the motor, it is a crush sleeve. It's a little bit different than factory applications usually have one that fits right around the pinion. It's a lot shorter. It doesn't look anything like this one. That's my guess as to what that is. Okay guys, so we're going through some of the parts. We're doing some comparisons, which is something you should do when you have things like different rear ends, different years, different, exceptions to the rule type of thing. Now technically our rear in the van was considered an 8 3/8. Things like the cover, the chrome cover, they interchange over to the 8 1/4, which is more commonly is what it's known as. A lot of the stuff interchanges, some things might not. But here's some interesting things, and hopefully I can relay this to you in a straightforward fashion. Right here is the one that came out of the van. It's a 355 gear. Notice that it's a lot thicker than this one. This is a 271 out of, from what I understand, a 73 or 74 B body. So it'd been like a satellite charger, something like that. Okay, this is the pinion that goes with the 271, and this is the pinion that goes with the 355. You'll also notice this 271 is much bigger diameter than this one over here is. It's much smaller. Number of teeth is all different, so that's how all that works out. First thing I decided to look at was our bearing sizes, because I know in certain years they changed to a different bearing size, but I thought that was more in the 1990s. Well, maybe not so. These are only really 1 to 2 years apart, from what I understand, and this bearing is a different size and a different pitch than this one. This one has more, a little bit more broader, where this one's steeper. Okay. Now, one way he's able to check that, the bearing races. This is the one that came on here, and you notice it fits like it should. It encapsulates the entire bearing, and it rolls. It's smooth. If you take this one and put it over here, it drops too far and it wobbles around. Okay, so that tells me that the size is different. This is the one that came on this one. It fits as it should, but over here, that does not fit at all, right? So there's where it's super obvious. So we know there is a bearing difference on these here. Okay. So what I did was I measured some other things, and I don't have calipers, so forgive me for that. So we're just doing some real basic measurements. And if I look inside here, on the inside where your axle slips through, we have 1 1/8 inches, right on the dot. Over here, we have the exact same thing, 1 1/8 inches. If I look at the outside of it, where your bearing here fits around that snout on the carrier, this is one way to do it. That one fits, right? That one matches this bearing here, but it does not match this bearing, but it fits over it just the same. So that tells me the snout's the same, and if you want to check, you can measure that as well. And on that, we have basically, let me get it right here, 1 3/4 inches. We have the same thing, 1.75 inches. Now we can double check that because there is a chamfer right here, and there's a chamfer there. So we want to make sure we're not going at the crown of the chamfer. So let's get the whole thing in. So it's actually about 1 and I would say, was that 13/16? And this reads exactly the same. So 1 and 13/16. So the bearing snout is the same on both of them. When you count the bolts here, it's the exact same number of bolts. When we measure from the center of one bolt to the other, or the one next to it, we come out to 1 inch and about 1 7/8, right in that ballpark. And then over here you have exact same thing, 1 7/8, give or take. So it looks like the ring gear would fit, and we can even measure across. Other things we can look at, and here's where it causes a total problem if you're not aware of it. This cap, one of the main caps that holds it in, you know, you have here's your adjuster. There's threaded spots in here, so it'll fit in there like so. And then when you get everything in there, you'll turn and allow the carrier to move side to side. And then there's this little adjuster pin here. That's what holds that adjustment, keeps it from spinning around as you get going down the road. Well, your race fits right inside of here. And on this one, it is a little snug, but it does kind of click right in there, okay? And that is the one that fit on the 271 that I pulled, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's it. Try to keep them separate. This one here, pretty much you put it together the same way. The adjusters are the same size and diameter, but these are a little wider than the ones that came on the 355. So if you look at that one, this one's probably almost 1/8 of an inch wider. And there's no hex. Okay, may not matter on that so much, but that's just an observation. So if you break this down, seeing all these little changes, we remove this, we remove that, and then we try to keep them separate so we don't get confused. This is the main cap that came on the 271. This is the main cap that came on the 355. They should, if they're the same, notice the difference here. I have this one lined up perfectly, but over here, there's about that 1/8 of an inch difference here. So you have different size mains, okay? And that translates into the case. The actual differential case is also different as well. You cannot just swap out the caps or swap out the bearing sizes because it will affect it on this one. So I will show you what it looks like in the case, and then we'll come back over here and show you a few other things that we was trying to be three-dimensional in our thinking about. So here's where one of our caps is, right? Now, it's perfectly round in there as it should be. It was all machined that way. Over here, this is one that's off, and you'll see it's basically, this is a part of the case. It was machined out, so you can't just put a different size race in there unless the race is, you know, maybe thicker or whatever the situation is on that. But these races do not interchange in the caps. So this one cannot fit out, but it's just simply too big, or the other one's too small, okay? So here we're gonna look at a few other differences that we need to be aware of. Now this part here is kind of funny to me. I don't know if it's just the way it is, but obviously here's our 355 again. This came out of the van, and this is the yoke for the drive shaft that came off of this one. When I go to fit it on there, it's not very fluid. It doesn't want to really fit on there that good. You can use a nut and tighten it down, and it will draw it down. So it's a little tighter, but it has a little bit of a wobble. It doesn't seem too sure. On this one over here, the one that did not come from, it slips right down on it, okay? And there's no play in it either. Absolutely no play. It just slips down perfectly. It comes up to this flush with this surface. So I think that's a good thing. The splines are exact same number, so there's nothing different on that front. just other things we can look at here. The washer that fits on this one, that's where it goes. And then the nut, the pinion nut, that's the way it was. All right, it threads right on, it's smooth, it's meant for that size. Same thing over here, so we're good there. Put those back, and then vice versa on that, okay? Another thing was I took one of our axles and slipped it in here. This is what they came from originally, but it also fit in here just as well. Just as snug, same way that that yoke fit on here. The axle fit in there. So the splines are the same number of splines. There's nothing different. A lot of these earlier ones, it was 27 splines. If I'm not mistaken, I can count one of them. But later, I think around 1996 or 97, they went to like a 29 spline on the 8 1/4. But what I'm going to go ahead and do, and this is what I'm kind of concerned about, these 355s have considerable wear on them. If you look here, it's like almost a mirror image inside these. They are very smooth, worn, and it's not like rough or anything. It's actually the opposite, but it looks like there's a lot of wear in there. And the same thing applies to these spider gears. They show like that mirror image, almost a chrome look to it, okay? So they're pretty well worn as well. When you flip this one over, there was a very slight bit of rust on this and on the pinion. It can clean up. It's just very, very superficial kind of rust. But usually if you get an old gear or anything, it's not quite as slick or shiny as these. There is obviously some wear on it, but it looks a little healthier to me, as does the spider gears. So ultimately, the main thing I need to decide is which carrier to use or whatever. Probably ideally you'd want to use the one that came out of it, and then you would switch everything over that's in better shape. And I do have carrier bearings on order, so these will get replaced regardless. So hopefully they'll be of the right size. Traditionally when I've ordered this other stuff, that it was no problem. Ultimately they was all the same size, it seemed, but there's a little difference here, a little concerning, but we'll try to get it right. And if anything, we'll just measure the bearings if they are wrong and try to get the right ones. Oh, another thing, these bearings here, this is interchangeable with that one over there. It's the same size, same pitch, everything there, so that's good. The only other difference on these pinions is here's your crush sleeve on this one. I've never seen one that big. I showed you that earlier, and when you have that belled out area, that's where it squishes it, and then it allows it to have the right preload. This one here is what I'm usually used to seeing. It's a smaller one, and it fits over top there. This one does not interchange here. It falls too short, and this one does fall correct. So this is probably your safest, your general Chrysler crush sleeve that you'd use instead of using shims or anything like that. So we'll keep that there. Keeps this one here. We have a new crush sleeve on the way. You want to get a new one of those, unless you want him to use shims or anything that, you know, the guy's going to put it together. Okay, so I have everything pretty much cleaned up here. And when you get ready to take your stuff to the differential guy, the guy that specializes in setting everything up, this along with the actual unit or the differential case is what you need to take. Okay, so you have the actual carrier with or without bearings up here. It does not matter. It just depends on your situation. Mine, I have new ones, but he has the press to get it off and the pullers and all that stuff. I'll let him take this one and the one down here off. Okay, you probably don't necessarily need the spider gears in here, but I'm just going to put them in here for him to look over. You can do that too, like, hey, can you look over, make sure everything looks kosher there, all that sort of thing. So that's a good practice. And when you do, put the pin through it and then go ahead and just tighten it down so nothing gets lost and falls apart on you. Okay, obviously the gear, you can either have it on or off. Since I didn't really have to take this one off, it's going to stay on here. It's already torqued to spec as it was, so it's going to stay. Obviously your pinion, Same thing on the bearing situation. You either have a new one or you're going to use the old one, just depending on what your deal is, okay? You're going to need a crush sleeve. Let's call this a new crush sleeve. It's not, but let's say you're going to have a crush sleeve. You have to have a crush sleeve so he can put it together to spec, factory spec, or shims if you can't get one of these, but you can get them. So if you want to do bearings, there's the big one, and then you have a little one up here. That's up to you. Same deal as all the others. You obviously need to take the yoke, because it will have the washer that goes in here, and then the nut so that he can set the preload, torque it all down properly, okay? Now when the unit's set into the differential case, he's going to need these adjusters. They're threaded, one on each side, and then you'll need the retainers to keep it from walking away. So there's the retainers, and here's the 2 bolts that hold that. And like I said, any bearing and or races. The races is what sit here, and they sit inside the caps. Okay, so you'll need just this. You do not need the axles. Nothing like that. You just need to take the differential, and that's what we're going to show you now. And that pretty much consists of the case itself, okay? So you want to clean all this up, this gasket, get it off of here. You want to clean the inside of this really good. A lot of brake cleaner, a little bit of elbow grease. Don't leave a bunch of lint in there. You want to leave your caps on for him. Put them on as they came off. So if this one came off this side, put it back on this side. Same thing over here. That way he can torque all this down when he gets everything adjusted, and you're ready to go. And then basically in the meantime, you can order your U-bolts so you can reinstall this thing, have it all ready to go. Any other things you can think of. I'll probably have to go ahead and get another cover seal for the chrome cover, okay? So you'll probably need to do that too, since you're doing the same thing. He's got to have that apart to get in there. Anything else? If you need to get some U-joints for your drive shaft, go ahead and get them now. I got to get some drive shafts. Mine are old and dried out. Anything else? Anything else? Yeah, if you need to get seals for the ends, bearings for the ends, go ahead and get them now. That way, if he's backed up, usually in the spring these guys are backed up, and unfortunately that's when I got to take this one in. So they're backed up because they're getting everybody ready for the racing season. Okay, so go ahead and work that out with whoever you're having to do that. This is just a guy that works out of his garage at home, and he gets a lot of business. So find a guy like that in your area, because there's usually guys that do that. Okay, and you'll be in pretty good shape. Just have all your other parts planned ahead. Communicate with him what you want done exactly, which is pretty much just set your gears in there. Try not to make him do too much work that he doesn't have to do, like cleaning up and finding new parts. You know, you get him the parts, and it probably save you a little bit of money on the whole experience. Last time I did this, it was $120. I provided the gear, the carrier, I provided everything, and I think he just had a seal that didn't line up with the one we gave him, so that was bad on me, but he happened to have one. No big deal. So good luck with that if you're doing it. Wish me luck in the meantime, especially with that bearing issue when we get the right size bushing, or bushings. If we get the bearings in from Rock Auto, hopefully they're the right size ones. It looks like most of the ones I've ordered in the past was the exact same size. So if not, we'll get the old calipers somewhere, and then we'll figure that out. Go off the part number of the other ones, you know, whatever you need to do. So I think we'll conclude the video. And again, thanks to RT's Mopar Salvage. He's helping us out. Check him out. We'll put the number again right down here. And yeah, stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe, like it, all that kind of good stuff. And you'll see this van start to hit the road soon. I think we're almost there. The front end's done. We got our tie rods. I didn't make a video about all that. We got a tie rod on there. We get this rear end situation, and we should pretty much be turnkey, ready to go. And we'll see what kind of a brake bleed we got. So then it's getting warm, and we can do some body work. Get all that finished, get some paint on it, make it look good, get all the seals in the doors and all that adjustments and all that fun stuff. So stay tuned. Thanks for coming to the Hoosier Garage.